share an updated listing and also the hours by which their members have been working. These are critical points which Senator JV has already emphasized.
I think, Ms. Medina, you have a good point there. Maybe now there's nothing that will compel them to do that. They can always claim proprietary, but when we craft the laws, and we have to say, you have to tell us exactly how many applicants you have, how many you have in your system, how long they're driving, what your safety measures are, etc. So that will be part of the law.
Okay. And then also, the data that they showed, I would like to ask if we have any data that will tell us how many of the passengers are actually owners of cars that leave their cars and take their TNVS. Do we have any data on that? Because what we're saying is that we are lifting the number of cars on the road, because most of the people I see taking that type of service are also the same consumers who are taking the taxis, but they still like it because it looks like, of course, it looks like as if you have your own car coming in and out. Okay, the other thing, this is very, very important. The reason why there is a big bulk now of people waiting for their cars to be accredited, because there is non-stop advertising of people saying, come and join us as our partner. Until
Pero ma'am,
this
there's
very
nothing
time.
you can do anything about that. Okay?
In most industries,
this is really the free market. Now,
Yes.
but you have to have truth in advertising also. So, right now, you cannot accept applications. Sinabihan na kayo. Buti nga hindi sinususpend because we mediated the effort also, Senator JV, that the ones that are still unregistered or are given provisionary permits are still allowed to run for the benefit of the passengers. But, you know, when you advertise, I see your point, people think it's still good. But again, ma'am, you cannot say, huwag kayong mag-advertise.
in most industries, Madam Chair, with due respect, in most industries, people who are into that industry have to ask permission from the regulating agencies. For example, if it's a food or cosmetic or drug product, you have to go first to FDI and ask for permission. If it is spare parts or any other, you should go to DTI. So there are things like those that are now prevailing. I do not know, well, in terms of the industry, of course, I don't think there is
Well,
any.
they still have to go through maybe the Ad Standards Council, I mean, the Billboard Association before they can put up those things. There are steps. I am a lawmaker, but any more regulation, I think, is too much. Okay, unless we see there's a need for it to stop. So don't abuse it. Because otherwise, we won't also hesitate to regulate if we feel that it's being abused. But I see your
One
point.
last, ma'am.
Alam mo, maraming last dito, pero hindi natatapos.
May forever, ma'am. Ito last talaga.
Hindi. Okay. Ayoko ng forever pagdating sa mga desisyon.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. One last thing is that for the past weeks, the LTFRB had been bashed. They had been, well, maligned. But my question is, did any of the two or any of these TNCs hire ad agencies using minions and all the other to bash the LTFRB?
Ma'am, I think we're going off topic. I understand what you're saying. Maraming trolls, maraming fake news. That's the free market. That's the sad or happy reality. They will get their PR firm. No one is stopping LTFRB from getting their own advocates to speak out. You're one of them now. And that's fine. We're just asking the media to be fair. That's all we can do. But we cannot point a gun at them and say, no, you can't get your people to talk nicely about you. But what I know is this: no idea will last anyway if it's untrue. So obviously there's a following and there are people who are agreeing because they absolutely enjoy the service. Otherwise, kung propaganda lang yan, sandali lang yan. They'll spend millions and it will not take off. So, anyway, for sure, meron silang PR. Let's just agree on that. Is it illegal? No. And I'm not going to regulate that. I mean, public information, I'm not going to say, oh, bawal yan. Pero yung fake news, pag nahuli kayo, pwede rin kayo talagang maging liable. Okay, sir, your designation, saan po kayo? Grab driver, sige
Grab
po.
driver po. Yung ano po, nalilito po kasi kami, lalo na ako bilang pong Grab driver. Sa TNBS din po ako eh. Nalilito po ako kung ano po ba ang guidelines na kailangan namin sundin para magkaroon kami ng CPC or prangkisa. Saka po kung ano po ba, yung 10 units po ba kailangan namin magkaroon or papayagan niyo po ba kaming mag-register as a group collectively kung meron kaming mga grupong hawak. Saka po yung kailan po malilift yung suspension po nung accreditation po?
Yun ang tanong natin, ilan ba yung naka-pending sa inyo? Ilang thousands na? Kasi I think Grab and Uber, you only have about 3,000 that actually have the permits, right? The Certificate of Public Convenience, right? Mga ganun lang. Ilan ang pending sa LTFRB?
Sir, ma'am?
Sila muna.
Well, ma'am, since when it was suspended on last year, we had around 7,000 that was submitted. Around 7,000 that was that remains
7,000 is
pending.
still not acted upon.
I think decisions have been made on some. How many? Sir, so we've had dismissals of around 2,400 of those 7,000.
Okay, so you have
So around
about
4,500
that are pending. How about Uber?
Madam Chairman, with the as to pending with the LTFRB, konti na lang po yun, less than 1,000 na lang po yun. Kasi nga po, marami na pong na-dismiss and so hindi po problema yung naka-pending po right now.
Ano yung problema?
Yung hindi po makapag-apply everyone who has signed up. So
Because
everyone,
of their memorandum circular
Yes,
in
ma'am.
2016.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now the issue is when will that be lifted?
Yes, ma'am.
And what will happen to the 40 plus thousand more that's pending, right? In your database that okay, yun na yung ating mahiwagang tanong sa LTFRB. So since your memorandum circular last year of June, you haven't been accrediting anymore or you haven't been accepting. We've heard from the experts you cannot limit. Okay, you cannot limit the number, or at least there's no study. So at least in consideration that there's still a demand that's not being met, do you have any intention to accredit those that haven't been accredited? Or, yes, those applications that have not been accepted?
As far as we are concerned, ma'am, pending ho sa amin ngayon, 10,000 plus. So we are processing that plus the 3,999. So we're seeing an estimate number of 14,000 additional 10,000 additional TNBS. This will take us around 2 months po because there are other denominations as well that we conduct hearings. May mga bus, may mga jeep, may mga taxis
Kasi ma'am,
po.
ganito yun, no? So, 50,000 na ang, sorry, you have to remind me, Attorney Eves, 50,000 ba yung hindi pa yung hindi tinatanggap yung application? Ilan?
as to applications, ma'am, right now we have about 25,000 ready for filing today if we were allowed.
No, so 25,000. But these 25,000 is actually already activated, right? So they're on the road now, and yet there's a gap in the need, right? So yung 25,000 na hindi pa na-accept yung application, tumatakbo na po yung serbisyo niyan. Pero may kakulangan pa rin sa pangailangan ng ating mga pasahero. So, masasabi ba natin, ma'am, na tatanggapin ninyo yan? At least kung if they can comply with your requirements. This is something that you'll have to meet about. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's the output of the technical working group.
How
As-
soon will you be able to resolve?
September, ma'am.
By September.
The latest is September.
So-
Yes, ma'am.
But so as of this time, tuloy pa rin yan na na nakakapag...
As we are, the decision has not become final because they filed the respective MRs. Once we resolve the MR, hopefully before September, and hopefully by that time we already have the exact numbers for the TNCs.
Oo, kasi alam mo, ganito lang yon, no? Huwag na muna kayong tumanggap na ng application para wala din backlog na masyado. And then, if there's a need later on, then that's the only time that you do so. But, you know, competition here will not be... Well, right now, you're enjoying a windfall. But hopefully, this administration will act on a rail system, a subway system, more coaches for our MRT. You know, you'll also be faced with stiffer competition. That's why we're also looking at that. Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, may I
Yes.
add, they just submitted their master list, so we also have to do a cross-checking because some of their operators are also operators of Grab or Uber or Grab. So we have to cross-match their data. And once we have those numbers, then we want to ask ilan ang inactive sa kanila. So take out your inactive in your database. When you say inactive, how many months? Because for Grab, it's 2 months without taking a ride. For Uber, they say it's 6 months without taking a ride. Ma'am, the franchise of government is only 1 year. So,
Yeah, I see. UHOP, di ba? UV Express.
UV Express.
Oh, kasi merong UHOP dito na sinasabi nila lahat ng UHOP colorum din. Okay, UV Express, what's your concern?
Dahil kasi may nasa probinsya ho kami, dahil ang UHA po nag-ooperate ho sa mga probinsya. Dahil ang nangyayari, dahil ang pinag-uusapan ho lang natin dito ay Grab at saka Uber. Ang UHub ay, ang alam ho namin, ito ho ay bawal mag-pick and drop. Dahil ito ho ay nagiging kalaban na ho namin ng UB. Hanggang ngayon ho, ganun pa rin ho ang operation nila. Dahil kami hong mga nasa probinsya, dun ho nag-ooperate ho ang mga UHub. Dahil ang pinag-uusapan ho kasi dito sa ating pinag-uusapan, Grab at Uber lamang. Pero ang ina-apply ho ng TNBS na. Pag ano ho ang TNBS, kasama na ho UHub. Ay kami ho ay naapektuhan, kami mga nasa probinsya.
Pero sila po ay kumukuha ng masasakyan, apre ng ginagamit, kahit sa probinsya. Ganun po ba?
Sa probinsya po, ay ang sangayon sa kanilang regulasyon ay bawal ho sa terminal, bawal ho sila sa pagsahod, bawal ho sila. Eto ho, katunayan may mga picture na ho kami.
Hindi, ganito lang po yun eh. Kung sila ay kumukuha ng pasahero na dyan sa gilid-gilid, eh, colorum lang yan kung
Yes,
wala
po,
silang
po.
ano. Pero kung meron silang app nga na sinasabi, tapos dun sila kinokontrata, medyo maselan po yon, iba na yon. Pero nakikita kong kompetensya sa inyo kasi kayo nga legal na ano. Ito nga yung nagiging issue sa lahat. So what we're seeing here, he's presenting another need. Kaya sa probinsya yan, kasi maraming mga sinasakay na kalakal dito sa mga UV, di ba? Hindi katulad sa mga taxi, hindi ano. So yung mga pananim ng ating mga magsasaka, yung mga ani nila, ganon, dun yon.
Ito mamay meron ho sila sign na LTFRB at DOTR na may mga marking ho sila, may marking ho ang tabi, nakatunayan sila yung mga UHAP at saka TNBS ho mismo.
So
May
gumawa
marking
sila ng
mo ito,
sarili
hindi
nila,
mo
may
katulad.
mga mark. Pero,
Oo.
so kung kumukuha lang sila doon at hindi sa app at nagpapasakay sila ng ganyan, edi colorum lang talaga yon.
Oo.
Trabaho ng LTFRB na matuntun kung sino yung mga yan.
Dahil kasi ho, ini-issuean ho sila ng PA. Pagka ano ngayon, natanggal na ho yung PA, sa nga 45 days lang ho ma'am yan eh. Ngayon ay may naririnig na naman ho ako sa mga region, nag-i-issue na naman ho sila ng PA. Ngayon ay sabi nga, ang sangayon sa alam ko, pagkakaalam ho namin, ay main office ho ang nag-i-issue. Ay meron hong mga kaano sa mga region. Yun
Sige
ho
po,
ang nangyayari.
isubmit po ninyo yung mga litrato na yan and this will be part of the hearing. Now, very quickly, 2 minutes. Sir?
Ma'am, I'm Marvin de la Cruz, Chairman and CEO of UHOP. Pangatlo po kami sa TNC na nabigyan ng
okay, so
prangkisa
ikaw
ng-
pala yun. Okay,
Yes
so
po.
go ahead.
Kagaya po ng nung una tayong present sa DOTC, ang purpose po talaga ng UHOP is ride sharing. So we focus on the bigger vehicle. So ang purpose po namin is to provide a round trip 99 pesos from the office to home and back and forth. So basically, kung ang decision po ng UHAP is kung pupunta ka naman ng isang direksyon, bakit pa kailangan kumuha ng isang sasakyan when you can join each other and reach the same destination? So, naka-up-base po kami. Meron po kami tinatawag na ride later. So basically po, kung araw-araw ka naman pumupunta halimbawa ng Senate, hindi mo na kinakailangan araw-araw mag-book na tuwing umaga, tuwing hapon. Actually, tungkol po sa concern ni Mr. Makasait, I believe po na nagkaroon na po ng mga proper hearing dito and it was dismissed po due to lack of evidence. Dumaan po kami sa lahat ng proseso, ma'am. Sa matter of fact, kung hindi niyo po alam, ang UHAP po is the only Filipino company who first applied for the TNC. Pero kami po yung huling nabigyan ng lisensya. Sa totoo po, ng 3 beses po kami umabot ng DOTC bago kami na-reconsider.
Ilan po yung... So may app din kayo?
Yes po.
Mga ilan po yung miyembro?
Actually po ma'am, ang total submitted member po namin as of today sa alas po nung nasubmit po kami sa LTFRB, nasa 5,000 po siya. Hindi po namin siya ma-activate, although ma'am, you won't believe na we have a lot of subscriber. Kasi po yung mga call center, eskwelahan, yan po yung mga market na hindi ma-serve masyado ng Grab and Uber kasi medyo mahal. So what we initially intend is not to compete with Grab and Uber, but to coexist. So we target the market na kagaya po ng mga empleyado natin dito sa Senate. Hindi naman nila kaya magbayad ng 200, 300 pesos, pupunta rito. So we can pull them all together.
Maganda rin yan. Actually,
Yes.
nakakabawas sa sasakyan.
Yes po.
Mas marami kayo.
Yes. As a matter of fact, we even presented this to Sir James Dickens last time with my co-board, Arlene. We were trying to say is, there's a lot of room para sa transportation. Imagine niyo po ma'am yung aming service, hindi ka napipila sa terminal. Darating na lang doon yung service mo sa oras ng gusto mong dumating yung service mo.
Pero mas mahal ng konti. At saka, meron kayong price variable.
Wala po, fix po yan. It's just 99 po siya, round trip.
Naku, malaking competition yan sa kasi may app.
Yes
Ang difference lang, may app kayo.
May app po yun ma'am, pero is our promotion po eh. We don't do searching. Wala po kaming stores. And ang kagandahan po kasi sa amin, we provide a guarantee income sa driver. May sweldo po sila. Meron silang SSS, meron po silang ganyan. And then, yung pong operator, meron po silang guaranteed income.
Okay. Pero totoo ba yung sinasabi na may nakamarka?
Meron po ma'am talaga nakamarka. Sa matter of fact po ma'am, yun po is policy ng LTFRB na may marking. Which is, kami nga lang pong sumusunod dito eh. May marking dapat.
Maganda. So, this is a Filipino company.
Yes po.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Tapos kayo pa nahuli, no?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, ma'am, sabi nga, we won already a lot of international recognitions. Dito lang talaga kami sa Pilipinas ay significant pa sa ngayon kasi nga hindi naman kami kilala. We don't have the resources as similar as the other two. But we are trying to coexist. We embrace the competition. It's just that the regulation, katulad ng sinasabi kanina ni Mr. Makasait, we will not deny po na meron talagang merong pick-up point. Inabi po namin yung kay Ma'am Lisada, kay Chairman, na hindi po lahat, especially provincial, covered ng internet. So ang ginagawa po namin, meron silang pick-up point. Kagaya po nakikita niyo sa airport na merong Grab na booth, kami po ang nagbubook na, hindi na po yung passenger. The passenger will come to the booth, sabi nila, mag-shopping muna kami, punta muna kami sa loob, pero after 1 hour, we will ride.
Nako, isa na namang yan. Isang dimension yan. Kasi una-muna dapat app-based. No?
App-based po, ma'am, siya.
Tapos,
App-based po, meron po kasing ride later. Meaning po, halimbawa, manonood po kayo sa sine. Siyempre po, alam niyo, matapos kayo 9 o'clock ng gabi. Pwede na po kayo mag-book ng 9:30. So we will allocate na po a particular plate on 9:30 para hindi na po kayo, baka wala akong masakyan, baka mamaya malita ko.
pero, kahit hindi marunong sa internet, pwedeng i-book kasi meron kayong pwesto
Internet pa rin po, ma'am, yan.
Ha?
Meron po silang device sa booth.
Hindi. Pwede. ang sinasabi natin, portable, dala-dala
Yes,
ng
ma'am.
mismong consumer.
Meron po, kahit po ma'am yung sa airport,
Okay.
yung kita.
Ang sinasabi ko lang, nanganganak ang teknolohiya.
Yes, ma'am.
So nakikita natin na may ganitong uri ng pangangailangan din dahil hindi naman lahat tayo internet, savvy or not even savvy but literate even. 'Di ba? Yung iba hindi naman So iba na naman 'yan. Kasi sasabihan, hindi naman kayo app-based lang 'di ba? So dalawa 'yan. So it will go again with the taxi na kung meron kayong app-based pero meron din kayong yung pick-up point, dapat may adjusted rate. So ang laki ng trabaho talaga ng LTFRB. Last na lang to, I think Okay, go ahead.
Attorney Lacambra po for TNVS drivers and operators. May issue rin po kami yung dual citizen na tinatawag. Both drivers and operators are registered simultaneously with two different TNCs. Ang aming suggestion po ay if eventually magkaroon po ng single CPC, Certificate of Public Convenience. Kasi ang nangyayari po ngayon, we apply for two different CPC or provisional authority. So, but we are engaging in one and the same service, that is TNVS po.
Okay, this is what you're all bringing out good points here. But it will only be productive if you will pursue it in our technical hearings. Because ito yung magiging basis for crafting the law. We have three and then kausapin niyo si si Engineer Santiago. Kasi baliwala itong hearing na to kung hindi natin talaga tatapusin yung batas para kaagad-agad ay mapatupad na. So, I think now I will close and I will ask Mr. Deacon to give us a few more insights before I give my conclusion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, I'd like to just close with what I said earlier because I think that's the point. It does require its own legislation. If we don't want it to compete with the taxis, which it shouldn't, we shouldn't put them in the same regulation because if you regulate it like a duck, it will be a duck. So that's what we want to avoid. And it seems a little odd to me or ironic in a way that this is a shared economy and it's outsourcing. The Philippines is the BPO capital of the world, at least for voice. So we not just get the concept of economy, shared economy, we actually base a lot of our national economy on that. So what we're trying to do is do the same thing, use the shared economy and outsource the chore of driving. As much as I'm an enthusiast, nobody enjoys driving during peak hour in congested cities. So what we're doing is we are now outsourcing that to people who can now make a living. It's win-win-win. Everybody wins. And if we can now affect the private sector and private cars, it's a big win for the whole country. What I love about the TNVS is the diversity of drivers that you get. You speak to them and you'll be amazed. If you catch them for a week and you just talk to your drivers for a week, you'll find mothers, lolos, OFWs. It's wonderful to see. And some of these people have been given an opportunity to work when the rest of the traditional workforce has turned their back on them. Think of a senior citizen who has been forced to retire at 60, but is very much a productive member of society because 60 is the new 40. And this person is told by regular workforce, we don't need you, we don't want you, you're a liability. This person can now work and drive for us. This person can now interact with society. We also look at the technology where if sometimes you think, oh, it's going to cannibalize, but Skype and Viber, I remember the telcos fighting that as well, but they'll coexist. We still send SMS, and we still use Viber and WhatsApp, because these are two different sorts. Not everybody has an internet connection. Not everybody wants to spend on a 3G data connection. So these are the things where we need to use this opportunity now to create more opportunities to find a better way forward. We've established here, and there's no argument so far, that this is the better way forward. It's just now a question of regulation and being fair. But by being fair and leveling the playing field, has been mentioned today many times, let's not ask Grab and Uber to go down. Let's ask the others to come up. Let's help them come up. Let's create a better way forward because we're sending a clear message to the world and to progress. You are welcome here. We want them to know that. The Philippines is, if I'm not mistaken, the fastest growing economy in Asia, if I read that correctly. Definitely not Asia, Southeast Asia. We're growing. And the biggest threat that we have, and I'm sure Dr. Cal will agree with me, is transport. The transport crisis is the only thing threatening to slow down that progress. And here comes solutions staring us in the face. We should use the energy finding a way to legalize it instead of ban it. That's where we should be spending our energy, madam. That is where I'd like to see. Now, just to cap it off, Ms. Medina mentioned a very good point. Safety should be at the center of everything and everything fall around that. I understand that completely, and I did an informal poll on my Facebook page, just my own personal page. I put it out there, and I asked people, which do you feel is the safer, more convenient option, a regulated taxi or an unregulated TNVS? There were 89,000 plus people who answered that poll in a matter of a week. 99.7%. I think you know where the answer is going. So I think we know what to do here. It's just a question now of finding policies that are bespoke and that don't kill the spirit, that preserve the spirit, and then help the other side come up. We're all stepping forward. Doesn't matter how little, let's just take a step, make sure it's in the right direction.
We don't allow clapping here, but thank you for capping that off and for your contribution, Mr. Deacon, and everybody here today. Unfortunately, I wanted to end on that higher note, but I have to still summarize what our discussion is. So, in today's hearing, I just have to go through the motion. Senate Committee on Public Services discussed several bills and proposed Senate resolutions on transport network vehicle services and whether or not they're considered common carriers and should be regulated by the government. Technology and market should dictate how the transport sector will evolve, taking into consideration the safety and convenience of the riding public, which Ms. Medina has consistently advocated safety. Tulad ng pag-usbong ng e-books at iba pang technology-based entertainment, hindi naman nawalan ang pagbabasa ng libro. We have a 2.87 billion industry in young adult novels. There's this column that I read, with around 10,200 titles as of 2012, from 4,600 titles in 2002. At the same time, e-book sales for young adult titles have increased 117%. Sabi nila, ay nako, uso na ngayon iPad, internet, Kindle, mawawala na yung publishing. No, there are more authors now, there are more books, more young people read with a different gadget. So, we should embrace technology. And I think that the LTFRB is moving forward there. As they have mentioned earlier, they are not against TNCs. However, we need to adapt. Thus, regulations affecting ride sharing should be responsive to the type of service they provide. TNVS are not taxis. They do not operate with a metered fare. They are not hailed on the streets, and they can use an app to determine transportation points. But this does not mean that they should be treated any different from common carriers. I think we can liken this experience to when iBooks, Kindle, and other literary apps came in. To quote from one article, as we read from Amazon, stream on Spotify and Netflix, book an Airbnb or Uber, it comes out as a realization that technology has not played a major role in displacing publishing, music, movies, accommodation, and transportation. Consumers will always find quality and convenience. Technology hasn't killed businesses. Incompetence did. This is from a writer in PDI. I wish I remember his name, but I think Generation M. Parang ganun yata. I would like to attribute this to him. He's one of the younger ones. But I agree with the concerns of the LTFRB. What is the status or identity of TNVS? Ano ba kayo, ride sharing? Hanggang ilan lang ba ang pwede sa isang naka-registered registered owner? How should they be accredited? How do they pay taxes, etc.? We will discuss this in our technical working group. A lack of legal framework that would govern the operations of TNVS still puts TNVS in limbo in our country. And we should not allow that. Yung mga nakapending na because of that memo circular as of last year, kung wala namang issues, payagan na natin. Dahil meron naman talagang demand na hindi na-fulfill. Pero wag na muna kayong tumanggap ngayon hanggat wala pang desisyon ng Oktubre. Ngayon, by October, if you still haven't had a decision, there's a problem with bureaucracy. And we will call on you with that. And I don't want to have to ask and give you a hard time during the budget hearing. But we don't want to render you obsolete, LTFRB. Kaya nga, September na, hindi na October ha. So mas mabilis. Payagan na ninyo kung wala namang problema sa safety, wala namang problema ano. Pero at the same time, yung sinasabi ninyong flag down rate para sa taxi, asikasuhin na rin natin. Kasi kawawa naman sila, they have to be competitive. At pag-aralan natin sa batas, kung magdudual citizen na ng taxi, ano yung kanilang magiging flag down rate at yung competitive rates nila pagka nasa app. May mga phone-in questions sa akin habang naghihiring tayo. Ma'am, paano na yung price surging ng Grab and Uber? Let me address this already to you. That's precisely the spirit of Grab and Uber. It's competitive, so you have a choice. Ayaw nyo magbayad ng ganito, for this convenience, you can always choose something else. Okay, so hindi naman din yan regulated, but unless it becomes already unjust, then we have to determine at what point for inflation, etc., we have to determine that. But again, not too much regulation, but a lack of legal framework that would govern the operations of the NBS. We need, however, Article 1732 of the Civil Code defines common carriers as persons, corporations, firms, or associations engaged in the business of carrying or transporting passengers or goods or both by land, water, or air for compensation, offering their services to the public. As to the issue of franchises, the Court of Appeals in De Guzman versus Court of Appeals ruled a certificate of public convenience is not a requisite for the incurring of liability under the Civil Code provisions governing common carriers. To exempt private respondent from the liabilities of common carrier because he has not secured the necessary certificate of public convenience would be offensive to sound public policy. So, it does not excuse you. Porket nawala pa kayong CPC, all the liabilities and the responsibilities. Makikita natin na ang pagsikat ng Uber at Grab ay dahil sa kakulangan ng maayos at ligtas na pampublikong transportasyon. These TNVS provide premium service compared with taxis. Hindi natin sinasabing sole responsibility ng mga taxi operators ang pag-upgrade ng kanilang serbisyo. Maaring may pagkukulang din ng regulator tungkol dito. Ngunit dati pa sana nating naisipang baguhin o rebisahin ang serbisyong binibigay, hindi lamang ng mga taxi kundi lahat ng pampublikong transportasyon. Dapat maganda ang serbisyo, mahirap ka man o mayaman. Kaya yung mga taxi nakakapagbigay din ng convenience, yung mga bus, yung mga jeepney, sa mga drivers naman natin, sa mga pasahero natin na hindi naman kaya ang Grab at Uber. At hindi naman porkit na dahil lang Grab at Uber mas mahal kayo, hindi naman natin i-regulate yung mga taxi, yung mga jeep na bigyan ng magandang serbisyo ang ating mga kababayan at porkit na hindi nila kayang magbayad ng mas mataas. TNVS should not also skirt around from existing government regulations. Naiisahan tayo Kasi nga maraming butas ang ating batas. Kasalanan din natin yon. If we want to move forward and craft legislation that is fair to all, then we should be forthright and respectful of the process and to each other. Let's respect each other also. But we will be watching. It's our mandate, ma'am, to make sure that you're on schedule. Yung mga hearings natin dapat mas mabilis. Kasi nga gusto ng mga tao na may kasagutan agad. We want to make sure that in the end, the public welfare and the common good must be considered. Muli, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo ngayong araw. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.